Cable theft and vandalism are costing the country more and more by the day. This continuous cycle has a tremendous effect on business and industry, hammering the country's ability to progress and grow the economy. Now, the latest case has seen batteries and linkages stolen from the Orlando power station, resulting not only in the loss of power, but also water to large parts of Johannesburg and Soweto. Let's speak to Mangena now from City Power. He's the spokesperson of the utility. He joins us now virtually. Isaac, thank you very much for your time here on eNCA. What are preliminary investigations showing you in terms of what happened at this particular power station?
Thank you very much for having us, and good afternoon to you and the viewers at home. Yes, we had an incident early this morning, which basically, which we think as part of the preliminary investigations, that there was a level of vandalism and theft at a substation in Soweto, Soweto substation, and this basically led to a series of other events where there was fire on about 13 panels at the substation, and plunged most of the substations in the south into darkness. This includes, of course, eNCA substations, which is supplying power to the Water Board, and which means that it is affecting the pumping of water at that station.
I do remember eNCA being a problem before in terms of Rand Water, and I can't ask you anything about Rand Water specifically, I know that, but with regards to the connect between the eNCA water treatment plant or eNCA water treatment and City Power and this particular substation, has it been a problem before? Am I correct in saying that it's been a problem before?
The problem that you recall is what happened, I think, about 4 to 5 years ago, when there was a fire at one of our transformers, that is at eNCA substation. But since then, we have basically ensured that we don't interrupt power supply to Rand Water because of the essential service that they basically are providing. When Rand Water is not pumping because of power supplies issues, it affects not only city of Johannesburg, but even Mogale City and parts of the northwest, because of the magnitude of the work that they do there of pumping water into those areas. So we have since basically ensured that there is no interruptions. There is at least two transformers that are dedicated to Rand Water alone. So that's why even in recent times, even when you heard us talking about eNCA substations being down and areas like Mangena and Kibla Park affected, you will never hear that Rand Water has been affected. However, with this line, the line to Rand Water Board is basically coming from Orlando substation, and it's an 8 kV line from Orlando substation, and that line, that is the one that has been affected by this vandalism and theft that happened, and as such we have difficulties in pumping, in ensuring that Rand Water is pumping water. However, we had our teams early this morning basically working hard to ensure that at least if we are not able to restore some of the suburbs in the south, we should be able to restore power at eNCA, so that Rand Water can also start pumping water. So the work is almost complete to ensure that Rand Water pumps water, and by 1 o'clock we are hoping that we'll be able to restore power to eNCA substation, so that we don't disrupt another service of water supply to the residents.
And of course, besides the reasons being a fire, for instance, at some of your substations, with this particular one, you are citing vandalism as one of those, and basically people stealing some of the parts in your infrastructure. And I've asked you this question before, Isaac, about inside job when it comes to the people who work for City Power, showing the alleged criminals exactly where to cut, etc. Has there been any accountability inside City Power if investigations, for instance, point to an inside job?
Yes, I think you are right. I was here with you and some of your colleagues about this issue of vandalism and the suspicions that some of our colleagues or even the people that are working on our network, contractors in this instance, could be involved in some of the issues that we encounter in terms of vandalism and cable theft. And indeed, we have seen recently some of the people that we have actually managed to arrest are the contractors that are working on our network. Just last week, we arrested one of those in Rudeport who was found in one of our switching stations around Florida. And he tried to basically, was trying to steal some of the equipment, but in the process also switched on one of the lines that our teams were working on. Fortunately, there was no one that was killed, but it could have been worse in that regard. But we also have arrested some of our security officials that were basically found to be assisting or aiding some of the theft that was happening on our copper cables. And just a month ago, we arrested one of our senior technicians in the inner city who was assisting some of the contractors to steal one of our transformers in that area. So while there is a problem, which seems like it's also coming from internally, the people that are working on our infrastructure. We have seen those people basically being caught and being arrested, and we are working with the law enforcement agencies, the team that was put together by the president last May, which basically deals with the theft on the infrastructure and vandalism of the infrastructure, where we've seen some of those people basically sentenced to nothing less than 15 years direct imprisonment. So we are hopeful that we will be able to deal with this, and some of the changes that we have done in terms of the contractual arrangements that we had with some of the contracts recently they seek to basically address some of those problems because of the level of screening that was done on those contracts. The previous contracts was not sufficient, and we've seen even in terms of the quality of the work that they were doing, and that's why we decided to also ensure that we bring in the new blood of contractors that will be properly screened, and that will basically ensure that they give sufficient service to our residents in the city.
So obviously you are one of the state utilities that would be in support of the call for legislature to be similar to that was passed by the former president of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, for copper cable trading to be something sort of like a crime in South Africa.
Indeed, I think we have seen, and we're seeing even now, where this copper cable theft and vandalism is actually affecting essential services. A week or two ago, it affected supply to Baragwanath Hospital, which means that the patients there are actually suffering because of the actions of few people. And yes, we do support those calls for this to be punishable because we see it as sabotage to the state and even the economy. And also we basically are also involved as City Power within the non-ferrous security cluster that has been put together, and we were in the meeting last week. And one of the things that we've picked there is that South Africa is exporting more copper than it actually produces in the country. So you wonder to yourself, where is that copper coming from? So it's definitely coming from some of these cables that have been stolen, some of these copper beads that have been taken out of our mini substation, and so forth. So we really agree to that call that we really need to have some level of control on this copper exports that are happening in the country, but also to ensure that those that are found to be disrupting essential services like electricity and water are actually sentenced to more years, so that it can serve as a deterrent to some of those who would be thieves and vandals.
All right, Isaac, my last question to you. This week, of course, you've noticed as City Power that Eskom has put the country on stage 4 load shedding, but only from 4 o'clock in the afternoon until midnight. And then after that, we are given some sort of reprieve between midnight and 4 o'clock. Does that do anything if it does continue in this trajectory? Because you've said before that your infrastructure is not built for the switching ons and off. But now that it's less, instead of stage 6, etc., and more often a day, does that give you the ability to probably just fix your infrastructure faster, for instance, such as the Orlando substation?
Yes, indeed, we do welcome the reprieve that we're getting currently, more so for our residents who have really been suffering due to the blackouts due to this load shedding that we've been going through. And I think that will basically go a long way in assisting us as City Power and the City of Johannesburg to ensure that we focus our efforts on much needed maintenance, but also deal with the backlogs. And we have seen even recently,
Yeah.
last week we were hovering around 4,500 outage calls, but this week we are seeing ourselves basically around 3,000, 2,500 calls, which means that some of the work that we've put in, especially with these new contractors that we have on board, is basically bearing fruits. But as you rightfully point out, it will basically allow us to deal with some of the issues, especially the backlogs that we have seen, and also try and bring some of the plants that are out of service back to service, because currently we were sitting at around 500 plants that are out of service. Under normal circumstances, it's supposed to be only 50. So the impact of load shedding can actually in terms of that. And that's why we believe that this reprieve will basically go a long way in ensuring that we bring most of those back to service. And I think the investment that is done by private sector in dealing with load shedding, the 2,000 megawatts that they've actually managed to pump in, which is the reason why we are seeing this reprieve, will go a long way. And that's why even as the city, we are working on those independent power producers to ensure that they are on board and we can be able to cushion some of our residents from the impact of load shedding.
All right, Isaac Mangena from City Power, thank you very much for speaking to us here on eNCA.